Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. And the topic of today's video is difference between unit test and integration test. We'll not just learn difference, but we will also learn conceptually what does unit test mean and what does integration test mean. So let's first talk about unit test. When we talk about unit test, the first thing that we need to understand is what do we mean by a unit. So generally, almost in 99% of the cases, what do we mean by unit is your Java class. But in certain cases, and as I read in a very famous book, Refactoring Legacy Code, there it says unit necessarily might not be in your exact Java class. It can be, combination of method calls that traverse between one or two or three classes, or some util methods which are written in another class. But they say that the definition of unit should be your minimal amount of functionality that can be tested individually. So generally speaking, if your class has methods, so each method can be considered as a unit and it can be tested individually. That is why, generally it boils down to testing your class. But yeah, in some cases it can, involve method calls to other class as well. So generally when I interview candidates for Java interview, I ask them this question. I ask them, suppose methods in your class A are calling methods in class B, and methods in class B are calling methods in class C. So how will you write unit test for them? And the answer that I get is that I will call class A and then it will call class B and then it call class C. No, this is wrong. The correct way is, since you are testing your unit, what is your unit? Your unit is class A. So you should mock class B in class A so that it should not call class B. Now this brings us to our next concept, which is mocking. So what is mocking? Mocking means that suppose your class A uses class B and class B uses class C or whatnot. But when you are testing class A, you should not test class B. Should not at all call class B. So how will you achieve this? In order to achieve this, you will have to mock class B. So it is kind of a false dependency that you inject in A, which is not actually B. It allows your code to compile, but when you call the method of class B, nothing will get called. So it is like a mock call. Like we have mocktail to mock cocktail. So it is a mock. We have mock interviews to practice for real interviews. Mock tests to practice for real tests. Similarly, we have mock objects to replace the real objects while testing your actual classes. So what do? You mock class B into class A. So the correct answer is you mock class B into class A and then you test only the functionality of class A. But why do we do so? We do so because it is a unit test and it is not an integration test. We'll come to integration test in a bit more later. So suppose you have your car. Your car has your carburetor, suspension, brakes, injection, engine, piston, lot of things. So if you would have been unit testing your car, you will only test suspension separately, ignition separately, fuel injection separately, carburetor separately. You will not test all these components together. That is a different thing. It is more fine-grained level of testing that you are doing using unit test. Okay. Now this brings us to another point, which is called coverage. So if you are using any common IDE like Eclipse or IntelliJ, if you right click on your project and they will give you an option to run the coverage report. What is a coverage report? It says how many lines in your code are covered by unit test. Generally, the tool used for unit test is JUnit. So how many lines of your actual code is covered with JUnits? Okay. And there are different types of coverage. There is line coverage, branch coverage, and some more types of coverage. By branch coverage, you mean that you write one test to run the if condition. Then you write one test to run the else condition. So this way, all branches, true, false, how many n number of combinations of true, false will be there in your project. So all that combination should run, and that is called branch coverage. Line coverage is simply how many number of lines of code is covered using JUnits or unit test, you may call it. So this is the concept of coverage. Once I worked in a project and there we were maintaining 85% of unit test coverage. Now this is a very ambitious and a very challenging task to achieve it, but we were achieving it. And it was a time taking process. It required a lot of effort to maintain it. But one might ask, what is the business justification of it? Why do I spend so much time and effort in writing unit test? Okay, so I'll highlight just 2 or 3 very main and simple benefits of it. The first benefit is, fail fast. Suppose you are developing a new project, you will write many classes, and when the complete flow of a functionality is written, then you will test it. But if you test each of your class using JUnit, you can, step one step ahead in the testing curve. You are testing the flow even before it is ready. So, fail fast approach. You're testing it beforehand. Apart from testing, one very important use of unit test and JUnit is it establishes a contract for your class. What do you mean by contract for your class? Suppose you designed a class, it had some method and it had a lot of business critical functionality, and you created a JUnit for it, and it was testing all the business functionality well and good. And suppose you left the company, you went somewhere else, and now the new developer comes. He tries his best to understand the code, and he's given a small enhancement in this code, and he modifies the business logic just slightly. And since he is new, he is not fully aware of the repercussions it might have. But your unit tests were written so well that they were able to identify that even though the developer had all good intentions of making things better, but he is changing the basic behavior of the class or basic behavior of one of the methods. So JUnit establishes a contract for your methods, and as a developer or designer of this class, you decide that if I'm giving these 3 inputs, and based on the permutation and combination of these 3 inputs, this should be output. If any code is changing the basic contract for which that class was defined, if the JUnits are well written, they will be able to catch it. So this is a very important usage of unit test and JUnits is that they establish a contract for your classes. Now another concept that comes with JUnit is TDD, test driven development. What does TDD say? It says whenever you are writing a class or you are writing a code, before writing your class, before writing your code, you write the JUnit for it. Obviously it will fail because your class doesn't have any functionality as of now, and then later you start implementing your classes, and slowly your JUnits will start passing. So, but one might ask, what is the benefit of it? Why don't I write the implementation first and JUnit later on? The benefit is that when you write the test cases first, you are able to think of all the positive and negative scenarios that you need to implement. It will help you think better. Because of this, TDD, test driven development, is becoming more and more popular. So this was an overview of unit test. Let's talk about integration test. Suppose your application is complete now, it is built now, and you want to test the flow in which class A calls class B calls class C, class C reads some data from database, and then it calls class G, and it is a lot of complex processing. So in integration test, you try to run the functionality as the actual application is running it. You call maybe some REST endpoints, or you drop a message on some messaging queue through which it is listened and the flow is started. In whatever way the flow is started, you imitate the actual real world scenario using your integration test, and you test the complete application end to end. You might ask, I've already spent so much effort in writing unit test, why should I spend more effort in writing integration test as well? The answer is that you are not delivering a unit to your client. To your client, you are delivering the complete functionality. And in the way the unit tests were establishing a contract for your classes, the integration test establish a contract for your complete functionality. Suppose there was a big functionality that you implemented in your project. It got completed, it got delivered. Now you started working on another functionality. If you have written proper integration test in place, they will run every day in a systematic manner, and they will continue to inform you whether that functionality is still running or there is a problem. If you develop functionality B, it will also tell you that whether changes made for functionality B are breaking your functionality A which you have already delivered. So in a way, this is called ring fencing. So integration test ring fence the functionality which is already delivered. So unit test has its own place and integration test has its own place. So similar to the question which I already discussed, where class A was calling class B was calling class C, I even asked the candidates, class C is calling the database. Then how will you write the unit test and how will you write the integration test? So the answer is class A will not call class B, class C or class D or database, because we'll mock everything. We'll use mocking and we will only test the logic which is present in class A. But in integration test, class A will call class B will call class C, and class C will call the database. So both these type of functionalities have their own significance and their own usage. Okay, so one of the most commonly used testing tool for integration test is Selenium. So it is also a Java based tool. What it will do is it will initialize a browser in itself if you are testing a web application, and it using this browser, when you run your application, you can check everything. You can check whether clicking button A caused what effect, button B caused what effect. After saving, you can check the data in database as well. You can then navigate between screens. You can do whatever you want. It is a very good automation tool. Another tool that I worked long ago was Fitnees. It is a very simple. Google created a wiki language for writing integration test using Fitnees. So using wiki language, we can write integration test in Fitnees, and it also serves the purpose. So these were the couple of integration testing tools that I used. Now there is a new integration testing tool that has been introduced by the Spring Boot framework or the Spring framework, which is @Spring Boot test annotation. Using this annotation, when you build your code, it first runs your JUnit test cases, which is your unit test cases. But if you use the annotation @Spring Boot test, after building your code and after running your unit test, it will create a running instance of your Spring Boot application at the time of building the code only. And then you can test all the REST endpoints of whatever functionality you want using especially your REST endpoints, using the test that you have annotated with @Spring Boot annotation. And you can create a contract for your complete flow as well, apart from a contract from your classes. So these tools are very helpful. And this is a very important interview question. What is unit test? What is integration test? And what is the difference between these? And so as a Java developer, you should understand these points, and you should also understand the difference between these two. So I hope you would have liked this explanation of unit test and integration test. Friends, if you like this video, do let us know in the comment section. What would you like to see more from us? Earlier, I used to create 1 minute short videos for interview questions, but I got some very good feedback from the viewers. So I thought in 1 minute, I can only talk about things in a concise manner. But based on the encouraging comments by the viewers, I decided this time to create a more detailed video on a particular topic. So if you like this video, do show your love by liking it, clicking the thumbs button, subscribing to our channel, sharing this video more and more, maybe on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn, on Twitter, on WhatsApp with your friends, so that we get the desired result of the efforts that we put in bringing you these videos. So please show your love, please show your support, and also please let us know what kind of content you want to see from us more, whether it's hand-on coding videos or it is this kind of discussion where we talk about Java interviews specifically. So I gave a lot of interviews in my career, so that is why I am able to talk about these interview questions. And I remember a lot of interview questions, tricky and simple and conceptual interview questions as well. So whatever you want to see from me, please let me know, and I will be very happy to produce content according to your expectation. And I hope that you will show your love by supporting this video and supporting my channel more and more. Thanks for watching, and all the best.